A major priority for both the president and his European allies is to reduce the dependence of Europe on Russian gas. Full stop. I think you can expect that the U.S. will look for ways to increase LNG supplies, surge LNG supplies to Europe, not just over the course of years, but over the course of months as well.
That was National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan yesterday telling reporters that the U.S. and the European Union are close to a deal that would cut Europe's dependence on Russian energy. He says an agreement could be announced as soon as tomorrow. Joining me right now is former Georgia Senator Kelly Loeffler. Senator, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here. I thought it was really interesting to hear Jake Sullivan talk this way, given the fact that President Biden walked in and into office and cut off energy independence right away. I know you wrote an op-ed on this, but your thoughts on these efforts now to try to help Europe wean itself off of Russian gas?
Well, good morning, Maria. The most powerful and important thing President Biden could do today and in the coming months is make America energy independent again. He took that away, not just on his first day canceling the Keystone XL pipeline, but during his campaign when he promised to shut down fossil fuel industry. We need to become fossil fuel dominant, become a net exporter again, just as we did under President Trump in 2019. And that will show our strength not just on a world stage, it'll restore Americans' pocketbooks. We're seeing the scoreboard every day at the grocery store and the gas pump, and it's hurting Americans. And they know that this is President Biden's position, and the world is waiting on Biden to show what America can do.
Yeah, I know, but that would also open him up and expose to everybody the fact that the climate change agenda is failing, Kelly, right? I mean, look, your recent op-ed has called for the U.S. to become energy independent once again. You write this: unleashing America's fossil fuels would be more powerful than any massive taxpayer-funded bailout bill that could be passed by Washington politicians. And yet, Senator, that blows up his climate change agenda. So is he going to go this way?
Well, he is, and he's shown it every step of the way. They're saying one thing but doing another. He's unleashed the power of the regulatory state against oil companies, against gas and other drillers who want to try to provide cheap, affordable, abundant, clean energy to America like no other country can. America can be trusted with fossil fuels, whereas he's looking over to authoritarian regimes like Iran, Venezuela, and he wants to trust them to provide clean sources of energy. And I spent nearly 2 decades in the energy industry, and I spent a year in Congress, and I know exactly where the power lies in terms of transforming this economy, and it's in the private sector.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons that Biden's polls continue to plummet. We have a new Fox News poll about the midterm elections saying that if the midterm elections were held today, more registered voters would support Republicans over Democrats. In another ominous sign for Democrats, Republicans have the enthusiasm behind them as well. 52% of Republican voters are extremely interested in the midterm elections compared to only 44% Democrats. Senator, your thoughts on what we're seeing in terms of these polls?
Well, I'm seeing it on the ground. Georgians don't want the Green New Deal. They want energy independence. They want affordable prices in their power bills at the gas pump and the grocery store. And they're rejecting the Biden administration's bowing to the climate lobby that really Putin is grifting off as well. Because of his funding of the radical climate agenda, he's able to finance this war. And Americans know that, and they're going to push back. There's tremendous energy on the ground here in Georgia, and Georgia knows that an all-of-the-above energy policy can work. We have nuclear, we have natural gas, we have hydro and solar. And we can make it work if we are allowed to get the regulatory state out of the way. And that's exactly why Republicans are going to turn out and have a resounding victory in November.
Yeah, I mean, look, you come at this from a lot of different positions because of not only your experience in energy, in the oil markets, but also having dealt with public companies at the New York Stock Exchange and backed. I mean, look, we've got this climate agenda throughout agencies in Washington. This week, the Securities and Exchange Commission Chairman Gary Gensler comes up with his disclosure questions requiring this proposal to require companies to disclose all emissions, including those from suppliers and customers, affiliates who use their product. This is often referred to as Scope 3 emissions. What kind of an impact do you think that's going to have on businesses, Senator? Your thoughts on these new proposals coming out of the SEC, which, of course, is more of the same climate agenda?
Well, clearly it's an additional burden on companies in terms of regulatory reporting, and we have seen the Biden administration use every single regulatory agency, including attempting to use the Fed, to defund fossil fuel and to promote an activist agenda that requires companies to really walk away. If you're looking at the 3-scope agenda, it's really to try to get companies to move away from any use of fossil fuel and to track their employees, their suppliers, and their employees in their activities day to day. So it's an unprecedented intrusion of the regulatory state on Americans' lives, on American business, and costs are going up. It's just going to multiply the dramatic effects that we're seeing of inflation, and we're not done seeing it because of the regulatory costs and burdens.
Yeah, as we face the potential burden of a recession on the horizon as well. Senator, it's good to see you. Thanks very much for weighing in on all of that. Kelly Loeffler joining us this morning. Good to see you. Thank you so much. We will check back soon.